Have you ever felt eyes on you, even when no one was looking? I hadn't, until that night. The last thing I expected when I agreed to go to that party was to end up running for my life, haunted by a green mark that I can never forget. College had been a blur of classes, part-time jobs, and an overwhelming sense of monotony. I'd never been much of a party goer, but the prospect of finally breaking free from my routine seemed too good to pass up. When my friends Bryson and Ian dragged me along to what they called the party of the semester, I didn't resist. Little did I know that this night would forever change my life. Bryson was always the life of the party, loud, confident, and fearless. He could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. Ian, on the other hand, was quieter, more reserved, and deeply invested in his online dating life. For weeks he had been talking non-stop about a girl he met online, Callista. She was apparently everything he'd ever wanted. Beautiful, smart, and mysterious. But despite their lengthy virtual conversations, they had never met in person. That is, until tonight. As we sat in the car waiting for the party to begin, Ian couldn't stop glancing at his phone, growing more anxious by the minute. He was supposed to meet Callista at the party, but she hadn't responded to his texts all day. Maybe she's just busy, Bryson teased, nudging Ian with a grin. Or maybe she's standing you up. Ian scowled, but didn't respond. I could tell he was nervous. He had invested too much hope in this girl, and the silence from her end was eating away at him. We pulled up to the house. It was massive, more like a mansion than a house, with pristine white walls and towering windows that reflected the evening's fading light. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, no sign of the usual college party chaos. No loud music, no throngs of people spilling onto the lawn. It was too quiet. "This doesn't feel like a party," I muttered, glancing around. Bryson shrugged. "Maybe we're early. Let's check it out." Ian's mood didn't improve as we approached the front door. He checked his phone one last time before stuffing it into his pocket with a resigned sigh. Callista still hadn't texted back. We stepped inside and immediately I knew something was off. The house was filled with people, but there was no energy. Everyone was dressed far too formally for a college party. Men in suits and women in elegant dresses, standing around with drinks in hand, speaking in hushed tones. The music playing in the background was strange, almost hypnotic, with a slow rhythmic beat that seemed to seep into my bones. "Who throws a party like this?" Bryson whispered, looking as confused as I felt. We wandered further into the house, weaving through the crowd. No one paid us any attention, not even a passing glance. It was as if we were invisible. I noticed a group of girls sitting on a plush sofa, all of them wearing matching emerald green dresses. Their faces were expressionless, and they spoke in hushed voices, as though sharing secrets too important for outsiders to hear. "Let's grab a drink," Bryson suggested, pulling us toward a nearby bar. The bartender, a tall man with sharp features and piercing eyes, silently handed us drinks without asking what we wanted. I took a sip, but the taste was strange, bitter and metallic, leaving an unsettling aftertaste. "I don't like this," I said, feeling a growing unease. "This party is weird." "You're just paranoid," Bryson replied, taking a long swig of his drink. "It's fine, just relax." But I couldn't relax. Something about the atmosphere felt off, like we didn't belong here. My gaze kept drifting back to the group of girls in green. One of them, a girl with long dark hair, glanced in our direction, her eyes locking with mine for a brief moment before she looked away. There was something unsettling about her, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. "Hey, isn't that Callista?" Ian suddenly exclaimed, pointing toward the back of the room. We all turned to look. Standing near the large staircase was a woman in a flowing green gown, her back to us. Her hair was the same shade of auburn that Ian had described, cascading down her shoulders in loose waves. Ian's face lit up with excitement. "I think it's her," he said, already making his way toward her. Bryson and I followed close behind, not wanting to leave him alone in this strange party. As we approached, the woman turned to face us, and my heart skipped a beat. It wasn't Callista. The woman's face was beautiful but cold, her expression blank as she regarded us with disinterest. Uh, sorry, Ian stammered, clearly embarrassed. I thought you were someone else. The woman didn't respond. Instead, she smiled, a slow, eerie smile that didn't reach her eyes, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. What the hell? Ian muttered, looking around. Where is she? I don't think she's coming, I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Maybe we should just leave. But Ian wasn't listening. His eyes scanned the room, desperate to catch a glimpse of Callista. Bryson, on the other hand, was more focused on the drinks and the mysterious atmosphere, seemingly oblivious to the growing tension. As we stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. My gaze drifted to the staircase again, and that's when I noticed it. The woman's neck. A small green mark peeked out from beneath her hairline, glowing faintly under the dim lights. Do you see that? I whispered to Bryson, nodding toward the woman. See what? That mark on her neck. It's green. Bryson squinted, trying to see what I was talking about, but the woman had already disappeared into the crowd again. You're imagining things, Bryson said with a shrug. Probably just a tattoo. But it didn't feel like a tattoo. Something about it felt wrong. As the night wore on, the unsettling feeling only grew stronger. I couldn't shake the sense that we were out of place, that we didn't belong here. The partygoers moved around us like shadows, their eyes cold and distant. Every now and then, I would catch a glimpse of someone with a similar green mark on their neck. Small, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. At one point, I excused myself to use the bathroom, hoping a moment alone would help clear my head. As I washed my hands, the door creaked open behind me, and I turned to see a man standing in the doorway watching me with a smirk. "Who invited you?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. I froze, unsure how to respond. Something about him felt dangerous, like he knew something I didn't. We're here with some friends," I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. The man stepped closer, his smirk widening. "You don't belong here." I glanced at his neck, and there it was. The same green mark, glowing faintly under the bathroom's harsh lights. Without another word, I pushed past him and hurried back to find Bryson and Ian. I needed to get out of here, now. "Ian, we need to leave," I said, grabbing his arm. Ian looked confused, still distracted by the idea of finding Callista. "What? Why? Something's wrong here, we need to go." Bryson, ever the skeptic, rolled his eyes. "You're being paranoid, it's just a weird party." But I wasn't imagining things. The green marks, the eerie atmosphere, the man in the bathroom, it all pointed to something far more sinister than just a strange party. And I wasn't about to stick around to find out what. As we made our way to the door, I noticed more and more people with those green marks. They were everywhere now, like a secret code that only the partygoers understood. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel eyes on us as we walked through the crowd. By the time we reached the door, my heart was racing. I grabbed the handle and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. "What the hell?" I muttered, trying again. Locked. Bryson stepped forward, trying to force the door open, but it was no use. We were trapped. Ian's phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out with a frown. His eyes widened as he read the message. "It's from Callista," he said, his voice shaking. "She says we need to leave, now." I didn't need any more convincing. I grabbed Bryson's arm and pulled him toward the back of the house, searching for another way out. The partygoers seemed to sense our panic, their cold stares following us as we moved. Finally, we found a side door leading to the backyard. We bolted through it, stumbling into the night air, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The cold night air hit me like a slap, and I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the partygoers following us. But they didn't. The house remained eerily silent behind us, the windows dark and empty. Ian was still staring at his phone, his face pale. She says we were never supposed to be there." "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I don't know," Ian replied, his voice barely a whisper. "But I think we just escaped something bad. We didn't stick around to find out what." We ran to the car and sped away, leaving the house and whatever dark secret it held far behind. But even now, weeks later, I can't forget that night. The green marks, the eerie atmosphere, the cold, unfeeling stares of the partygoers. It haunts me, creeping into my thoughts at the most unexpected moments. And sometimes, late at night when I'm alone, I swear I can still feel eyes watching me, cold and unblinking, just like at that party. Maybe we didn't escape after all. As a graduate student studying civil engineering at Purdue University, I thought I had my life figured out. A few months in, everything seemed stable. Classes were manageable. I'd made a couple of friends, and my apartment was decently priced, albeit in a sketchy part of town. The landlord? He was a different story. There was something unsettling about the way he looked at me, but I brushed it off. After all, I was a guy in my mid-20s. I could handle myself. I found solace in my drives, the solitude of the road wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. Life felt predictable, maybe even a little boring, but I was there for my degree, not a wild social life. That was until the day everything spiraled out of control. It happened so quickly. I was in a lecture hall, the room buzzing with conversations, and in my absent-mindedness, I left my backpack on a table while I stepped out for a quick bathroom break. When I returned, it was gone. I cursed myself for being so careless, but I figured it was just a minor inconvenience. Without thinking, I let the incident slide. Then reality hit hard. Days later, I came home to find a handwritten note slipped beneath my door. I assumed it was from my landlord, maybe a reminder about the rent. But when I read it, chills crawled up my spine. It simply said, "I see you." No signature, no explanation, just those 3 words. Panic set in as I pieced it all together. Whoever had stolen my backpack had found my laptop, dug through its contents, and discovered my address. And then the realization struck me like a cold wave. They now had my apartment keys. My skin prickled as shadows in the dimly lit hallway seemed to stretch and breathe around me. I bolted inside, slamming the door shut, locking it tight, as if that would protect me from the lurking terror. The week that followed was a blur of dread. More notes appeared, each one more cryptic than the last. "I know what you did, and watch yourself." These phrases haunted my thoughts, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I hadn't done anything wrong, but the fear of the unknown gripped me tighter than ever. Would reporting this to the police even help? Would they take me seriously? One night, as I was preparing for bed, the oppressive darkness outside my window felt alive. I glanced at my blinds and swore I saw a flash, like someone snapping a picture of me. My heart pounded in my chest as I yanked the blinds shut. But when I peered into the void outside, I found nothing but a suffocating silence. Then, the small disturbances began. My shoes would be in different spots, my coat hanging off the chair instead of on the hook. I brushed it off as forgetfulness, a harmless trick of the mind. But one day, I returned home to a sight that shattered my fragile sense of safety. My bed sheets had been stripped away, my room turned upside down. My dresser drawers lay pulled out, books scattered across the floor like fallen leaves in a storm. It looked like a whirlwind had swept through my sanctuary. I immediately called the police, but their response was as cold as the grave. No forced entry, nothing stolen. There's not much we can do. Their apathy felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I asked my landlord to change the locks, but he dismissed my fears, saying it wasn't an emergency. How could he not see the danger? Despair clawed at me as I pressed him for action, but eventually he ceased answering my calls altogether. That was yesterday. Last night I barely slept, the darkness pressing in around me like a suffocating shroud. The deadbolt felt like a flimsy barrier against whatever unseen terror stalked me. I contemplated changing the locks myself, but the thought of damaging the door filled me with dread. Today, I skipped all my classes, my fear chaining me to this haunted space. I'm writing this now, my heart racing with every creak of the old building. I've made a plan. If they come back, I'll confront whoever is tormenting me. Surely if they've gone through my laptop, they know my class schedule. I'll hide, biding my time, waiting for them to make their move. If I don't make it out of this, let this be my final message. There's something waiting in the shadows, something that knows too much. I'll update you when I can, or if I can. I can't keep this secret any longer. The shadows that linger around my life have become too heavy to bear. Just a few weeks ago, I broke up with Ben, my boyfriend of 2 years. It wasn't a catastrophic end, but it certainly wasn't peaceful either. The arguments had spiraled for months, building a wall between us that I knew we couldn't break down. When we finally parted ways, I thought I had escaped the turmoil. I blocked him on every platform, convinced that would be the end of it. A few days after our breakup, I began to hear unsettling noises outside my window. They weren't the typical city sounds. No, these were something else entirely. Footsteps. Soft, shuffling sounds that felt too close, too deliberate, as if someone was lurking just beyond my view. At first I dismissed it, chalking it up to my imagination. But soon, unease settled in, and I found myself thinking it was Ben. I tried to quell my anxiety. He was harmless, right? A sweet guy, albeit a little lost. Surely he wouldn't hurt me. I figured he simply missed me and would eventually grow tired of it all. Life was already weighing down on me with a massive group project looming, and I had no time for paranoia. I worked late into the night perfecting our video project. I hit send just before midnight, relief washing over me. I crawled into bed hoping for a few hours of peace, but the next day shattered that fragile calm. In class, my professor pulled up the video I had submitted. My stomach twisted as it started playing. The pride I felt instantly morphed into horror. It wasn't our project that filled the screen. Instead, it was a grainy video of a figure in a grotesque scream mask, their voice dripping with venom as they spewed vile things about me, about my life, about everything I'd ever cared for. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat like a death knell echoing in the silent classroom. Frozen in place, I felt the weight of 100 eyes piercing into me. The seconds stretched into an eternity before I exploded into tears and bolted from the lecture hall, my breath hitching in panic. I stood outside, trembling, battling the urge to run home. I knew I couldn't just abandon my responsibilities. Eventually, I spoke to my professor, begging him to understand that I hadn't sent that horrific video. He confirmed my fears. 2 videos had been sent. One was mine and the other a grotesque attack. Clearing my name took a toll, but I thought I could move past it. Then I discovered my email had been hacked. Days later, I awoke to find myself logged out of Snapchat. The cold realization hit me like a slap. Someone had accessed my account, my private life laid bare. I reached out to the police, and to my shock, Ben agreed to be questioned. He claimed innocence, but revealed he had posted my personal information on some dark forum. He swore he never shared my passwords, but I had used the same simple password for everything. How foolish I had been. The police had little to offer, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. Weeks passed in silence, and I hoped my tormentor had grown bored. I should have known better. One day, a stranger added me on Snapchat. The moment I accepted, the darkness returned. Images began to flood my phone. Pictures of me, in intimate moments I thought were mine alone. I couldn't breathe. I blocked them, my heart racing. But they were relentless. Each day brought a new profile, a new threat. I lived in a prison of fear, knowing they were out there, watching, lurking just beyond the veil of my privacy. I felt trapped, with nowhere to turn. The police couldn't help. They needed evidence I didn't have. I feared for my safety, knowing this person knew my address, my routines. The shadows outside my window grew darker each night, and I prayed for an end to the torment, for them to simply lose interest. To any young women listening, guard your privacy fiercely. What feels harmless today could haunt you tomorrow. I'm still waiting for the nightmare to end, but deep down I know it's only just beginning.